All right, so I wasn't getting a schedule from like anyone as to when you'd be able to look over this stuff, so I just decided to make a YouTube video. Because there's no way I can fit it in like 100 megs and squeeze it into fucking Discord. So, this is the race thingy for cosplay. Do not share this around. This stays in this chat. Um, so let's see. What I need to show off is a full thing. So, you have the option whether or not you want this to happen. So when a player will spawn in, they will see this. They can select a race to inspect and select from the different races. Um, when they select on the race, it will show all about this race, like what stats it has, what it can't ride, what it can ride, what it's neutral to, and if it has like a distance. I think the Raptor Folk has a distance. Yeah, it'll say until 0.65 meters. If it doesn't have a distance and it's just straight up making them neutral, then it's just like that. Um, then obviously the part whitelist and stuff. I think the Raptor Folk is the best to show this off for. Um, and then when they hit become a Raptor Folk, you also have an option that as soon as they hit this and accept, it will immediately bring up this customization menu. So they'll be able to out the gate start customizing their character. So they can, go to the body and match this up a little bit better. I don't know. I'm not going to spend time doing that, but obviously you get what's going on. So they can play around with that. Now, um, I think we'll get into the race alters later, and first we will get into the very simplest of the admin menus. Firstly, you will notice that I did away completely with the allow parts admin menu, and I sort of repurposed it for this. Um, this is just the allow parts admin menu, just overhauled. And now this menu is used for setting the race of any character. I'm the only one here, but if there were more players, you would see every single player. Um, it's a little fucking loud. You will also let me go. All right. You will also be able to go to like search them up. So Survivor. Well, how do I show you? Okay, so Survivor 1 doesn't come up in the results. That does. So searching works. You can also search by like different things like tribe name, player, whatever, race. So if I were to search by dragon, nothing's there, but raptor. Oh, what do you know? And I can also change my race. So if I want to go back to default, do note that as soon as you hit it, it will change your character. So as soon as I hit like Wolfkin, it will change my character. So don't spam change stuff because it is a quite hefty function to go out, find this player, change their race, have their thing force pull an update. Like it's pretty hefty on the server, so don't use this just willy. Well, you can use it willy nilly, just don't spam it. Um, so I'm gonna go back to Raptor Folk. And now we'll move on to the customization menu. So within the menu, um, almost everything that needs explaining, if you hover over the name, it'll say like it'll have like a little tooltip. I don't know if that's too small for you to read, but it looks fine for me, and it'll scale with your monitor. It'll have a little tooltip kind of explaining it a little bit. So as you can see, you have all of these stat multipliers, body customization force settings, extra stat multipliers, um, extra stat additions. This new player defaults thing is not super useful on anything except for the base default race. Um, and it would be useful if, say, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna come up with like a void skin. So if you wanted their skin to default to like void and hide their hair and stuff like that, you can do it this way. Um, but yeah, um, it's not gonna be super useful for some servers that are really gonna be using these race heavy things. But I figured it would be nice if it was there anyways. Um, and I might actually, I'll post whether or not I end up doing it, but I might actually end up going back and making these apply when the player actually selects their race, if you have it select the race at the beginning, you know. So yeah. And then here is the part blacklist whitelist. If we go ahead and look at the raptor folk, here it is. You can, if you press this button, that'll put it on the blacklist slash whitelist. You can change what it is by clicking up here. So right now I have it on whitelist, but I'll move that away. And then we will go into the locking part. So if you hit the lock, it will require it. Um, and you'll notice that there's a group ID. It kind of explains it that this is the group ID, and if required group IDs match, so you see how I have legs, or rather how I have the heads on like 0, on all of them on 0, well that means it'll require one of the heads, but not all of them. So that way they can kind of choose different heads. So you can have a dragon race with all the dragon heads required, so they have to have a dragon head, but they don't have to have a specific dragon head, if you so please. Um, but when you add a locked part, it'll automatically generate with an ID that is not in use. So you don't have to worry about having to manually set that up. Um, then there's Dyno neutrality. Uh, it will. I put in some code to help a little bit with auto completion. So if I add a new entry and I paste, like you see, I copied everything except for the underscore C, it'll kind of auto complete with the underscore C. So it'll help out a little bit, but it doesn't really know super well what you're trying to type in. Um, but essentially, you put in a dyno path, and then this is the distance at which it will return to default aggression. So at 100 Unreal units, it will revert to being aggressive. If it's like a raptor or whatever. Similar thing for blacklist or whitelist riding dinos. Um, you can whitelist them like to be like, oh, well, they can only ride these dinos, or blacklist to they cannot ride these dinos. I mean, that bit's kind of obvious, but you just put in the dino path again, it'll tell you if it's valid. All that good stuff. Um, so yeah, I think that's most of what is here. The process will be a bit slow for races, as you do have to manually like whitelist all the different parts. It will. I won't lie. It will probably be a little bit of a chore setting all this up. But the good news is this is all saved to a file in your save games. So if you have like a cluster and you want to multiply this over, you can just copy that one file, and I think it's called like race datas or something like that, and just move it to the other server on the cluster, and you don't have to, do all this like 3, 4, 5 times. Another thing that another function is obviously remove a race. You hit X and then you hit check if you want to remove it, and then X if you didn't mean to click that. Another thing you can do is hit this button right here. This is a duplicate race. So if you have it like a default one set up with all the piercings and all that shit, and you don't want to have to do it a million times, um, you can just make a duplicate, customize it slightly, go from there. Um, the next thing we need to talk about in this menu is the general settings right here. So if I go ahead and click on general settings, there's not very much here, but this is where you control um, whether or not you want that race selection thing to show up when you first spawn, and whether or not you want that customization thing to show up when you first spawn, as well as show only non-default stats. I'm going to leave that as is so I can kind of show you what's going on. So if I look at here, you'll see it'll show like, well, only the stats that are changed. But if I go back in here and change this, and these settings, by the way, these general settings, they apply to all the races since this is, well, general settings. But anyways, if I go back to here, you'll see the ones that are just normal. That's up to personal preference, how you want your viewers to see certain stuff. Your server people to see certain stuff. Anyways, um, so I'm gonna go ahead and enable this, but I don't want them to see the mirror on spawn. So just to kind of show what I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and restart here. And you'll see that I can select what I want again and become Dragonborn, yes. And now we can get into the altars. You might say, well, why do you have these things if you have them selected off of spawn? Well, the thing is, initially when I pitched the idea, this is what the people wanted, so I kind of made it to where people can get their races from this. And now they serve a slightly different purpose. You can make essentially with these you can make like sub races. For instance, if you go up to a altar, you can not only select what race it's showing, so you can be like, okay, I want this one to be Wolfkin, and this will be set to Wolfkin, right? But we're gonna stick it back to Dragonborn. You can also select what races are allowed to use this altar. So right now, none of the races except for default can use it, but if I allow my race, which is Dragonborn, you'll see that I can now use it. It wouldn't do anything because, well, I'm already a Dragonborn, but essentially what you can do is if I go ahead and hit this one to turn me back into a default, and I have every race allowed on this one. So I'm a default now, but because default doesn't disallow any parts, I still have all my dragon part bits. Um, you'll see that I can't access these, which are Microraptor and Megaraptor, and I still can't access them if I become like a Wolfkin. But if I become a Raptor folk, now if I go to these, now I can actually become these subspecies. So maybe it could be like an event thing for like specific people. They could be like a slightly, I don't know. They could allow like one more part or something. I don't know. Or your character would start out as a base race, and they could kind of specialize their race into specific things. So now if I hit this, I can read from it and become, yes. Now I'm a Microraptor. Um, moves very fast, but has like low health. I don't know. See, I can't really access any of the altars anymore because I already have my specialization. And then say if I go back here, I'm a default, it's gonna stick me in the ground. That's always an issue with going from small to big. Um, go back to Raptor. And then Mega Raptor. I got lazy with this one. This was just to show off an example. Um, but yeah, so now I'm a big boy. But anyways, a big boy that's like slower but tankier. I don't know. So that's what the alters could be used for. Or if you want to really kind of oversee what your character, what your players are making when they come into a server, you can have them start as a default, not have the initial screen appear, and watch them as they go choose what they want to choose and blah blah blah. Um, but yeah. So let's see. In the mirror, if we see it from the player's view now, so we kind of go over to the players, you'll see that they can see what part of the groups that certain items are, so they can go to the heads and, well, bad example. Heads, and they can see all the heads that they can have, and you'll see they're in the same group because it's 0. And then they can, select the different heads. But if they try and deselect the head, it won't let them. They have to have one of the heads equipped. Um, but then there's also parts that like are allowed but not required, and they just don't show anything. It's just that they will show up. Period. Um, so yeah, so that's how the whitelist and blacklist parts works for that. Um, Other than that, a player can always tell what race they are by looking in their inventory and seeing this here. Um, and it'll also, if you hover over the name, it'll give you the description of your current race. Yes, it's a bit long, but it's not like they're going to be hovering over that all the time. In fact, they're just going to be, over here, maybe over here, but not really hovering over that. But anyways, um, it's there if they ever forget the lore. Um, let's see. Other than that, I think that has everything to cover all the admins need to know about the races. And if you're a player and just want to know a bit more in the background of how things work, this video could be for you as well. But this video, as for now, won't be released to anyone except for the commissioners. So, yeah, have a good one.